What's up everybody, Matt Maran here for another My Week With video. So this week I've been driving the 2026 Toyota GR86. And this isn't just any old GR86, this is a unique combo. I've of course covered many GR86s and BRZs over the past several years. Anyone who's been watching this channel for any amount of time knows that I very much love these cars. They're fantastic. But this one is unique because this one is a base model with the performance pack, which is a unique combo that only Toyota offers. Subaru doesn't offer a base model or the ability to get any of this stuff on a cheaper trim. You have to go up to the TS on the BRZ. So really cool it has that. But this one also has a bunch of the dealer installed accessories that you can get from GR Performance. So it has the GR Performance dual exhaust, which you can probably hear already. It also has their stabilizer bars, which we'll get into, and also their Strut tower brace here. And so we'll get into all that here. And also my most recent impressions here of what it's like to live with a GR86 for a week. But this one is a little harder to live with this exhaust and its drone. But before we get into that exhaust, but while we're on the topic of exhaust here, this video is brought to you by Thermal R&D Performance. They have 40 years of experience building exhausts right here in the USA, and their true Helmholtz technology is specifically engineered to kill interior drone without sacrificing that aggressive, deep exhaust note that you actually want. So they have bolt-on exhaust systems for the Explorer ST, the Civic Si, the Ford F-150, and they also have an exhaust coming for the Tacoma soon. The link to their site's in the description. Go check it out and see what fits your build. And man, do I wish that they made an exhaust for this thing. Unfortunately, they do not, but I could really use some of that Helmholtz technology here to kill interior drone, because man, that's the first thing I gotta say about this thing here this week is this exhaust drones so badly. And I'm no stranger to loud exhausts. I had a first gen BRZ with a very loud exhaust. I had an aftermarket exhaust on my Legacy GT for many years, my EcoBoost Mustangs, loud exhaust on my GT Mustangs in the past. This is just not a well-done exhaust, sadly, which I was really surprised because this is, again, OEM quality, GR stuff. It's track tested, they say, and everything. But it's $1,700 and it's just a catback system. But man, the drone on startup is even worse than the stock WX drone on startup. And if you've ever experienced that, I complain about that all the time too. It's horrible. And it's like not the sound you want to be greeted with the second you start up your fun car is just interior drone. I hate it. And so, once it's up and warmed up and running, it sounds fine, but honestly, it sounds very factory, just a little bit more volume. And if that's what you're going for, the nice thing is with this and all these parts you can get from the GR accessories catalog, they're all, covered by the warranty and they're all able to be financed, at the point of sale. So, that is, the nice perk is bundling it into your financing for the car. Maybe as a way for some people to get these things, versus just paying on the aftermarket. But these are expensive pieces for sure. So it looks great, but it's kind of just really disappointing that GR is, allowing this to be sold with just horrible drone like that. Surely, again, there's others that make drone-free exhausts, and so definitely would skip the exhaust. Now, the other little tweaks here that they've made. So again, we have these sway bars here, or anti-roll bars. And for anyone who's not familiar with those, they just basically eliminate body roll and really heavily minimize that and sway. But this car does not need any help with that because, I don't know, to me, again, I'm not tracking this thing, but for a spirited back road drive, these were already plenty flat. And they actually did sharpen up steering, I think, a little bit here for 25. But these always had such wonderful steering, just such wonderful, handling cars that, honestly, for me, like even the performance pack, it's nice, but I like having the extra loose feeling of the, all-season tires you get on the base GR86. That is, to me, the most fun of the bunch. And so performance pack too, for anyone who's not been keeping track of that, it's just giving you the wheels and tires that are bigger. They're summer tires instead of the all seasons. They're the fantastic Michelin Pilot Sport 4 tire. And then you also do get the Sachs dampers, and then you get the Brembo brakes. And that package is $2,020, and it's great, again, that they don't force you to go up to some big expensive trim like Subaru does in order to get all that stuff. And so as a result, you know, these start again just over 32 or so, you know, for one of these without any of that stuff. With that stuff put on, you're still under 35 grand. And then this one with all those accessories is another 4 grand in options pretty much, brings the total of this one up to about $38,000, which you could go for a premium and have a nicer interior with heated seats and stuff if that's important to you. But like, you know, still I'd say this is a relative bargain for all those things. But as far as the sway bars goes, you know, I mean, it does handle very, very well. And, you know, people seem to really like these. Now, for anyone who is in the aftermarket world of these, you know, these sway bars are not adjustable like most others are that you buy on the aftermarket, and they're also expensive. They're $1,320 for 2 sway bars. That's like double what you pay for most others, it seems, even with these inflated prices we have these days. And so, but according to Toyota, they claim that it increases stiffness by like 200% in the front, I believe 267% in the rear or something. It basically comes down to it being a 6mm thicker sway bar in the front, 4mm thicker in the rear. Certainly nice if you are gonna really push one of these things hard. Probably, you know, it's nice again to be able to bundle into financing, but these are not going to be a good value. Definitely go for, you know, something else on the aftermarket there, to go for a cheaper sway bar just to, you know, accomplish the same thing without paying, you know, a huge amount of money. And as far as the ride quality here with the sway bars, I haven't noticed any kind of worse ride quality. I mean, these are, you know, a stiffer suspension setup, especially going up to the bigger wheels, I think kind of hurt your ride quality over the smaller wheels with the all-season tires. Some people claim the Sachs dampers on the Performance Pack are actually more comfortable than the regular dampers. I haven't lived with a base one without the Performance Package to really truly compare, so it's hard for me to say. But you know, it's a sports car. It feels like a sports car, but I think it's actually a very comfortable ride. Totally daily drivable, as long as you're not driving on horrible roads nonstop, and as long as you're, you know, understanding and have the right context of what you're driving, what you're in, and as long as you have your, you know, proper expectations, I think it'll be fine. And the Strut tower bar brace there, you know, that's like $640. Also very expensive for that, you know, what it is, you know, very basic kind of piece of equipment there. And those don't really do a huge amount of difference in my opinion, in my experience of, you know, all my aftermarket days back in the day. You know, it was more of a dress-up thing than it was anything that actually, you know, made a big difference from a handling standpoint. But if you're looking for that extra tiny little bit of extra rigidity and you want every tiny bit you can get, you know, then this is certainly going to be a nice option, I suppose. And again, I do really like that Toyota offers these things from the dealer, so you can have a dealer installed, have it all right on the car the second you take delivery of your brand new, you know, GR86. And that is really nice, instead of having to wait and install stuff and find an installer and, you know, all this other stuff. It's really great. Although you could probably pay Toyota, you know, technicians to put aftermarket stuff on too, potentially, but regardless, you know, it's cool. I'm happy to be able to sample this stuff. You know, a little bit out of the ordinary from the usual press cars that are always, you know, more or less the same. But as far as general GR86 stuff, again, I really have loved these cars. It fixed everything I didn't like about the first generation, you know, with having more torque, more punch at all RPMs, more character with this engine, you know, better handling. It's just better in really all of the ways. And this thing is just, it's so fun on a back road. And man, you know, it's been about 2 years since I've actually had one of these for a week, and I was really savoring it this week, especially, you know, driving so many modern cars and crossovers and, you know, a whole variety of stuff. And even just, you know, getting out of a Miata a couple of months ago, the steering in this, I think is probably my favorite thing, honestly, these days, especially if you have all the grip of these summer tires. The steering is just so telepathic and so nicely done. So I really do love that component. But the things that I don't love about the GR86 still, first off, throttle response is crazy, and not in a good way. So I think that this is probably the most sensitive throttle response ever fitted to a car. I could be wrong there. Surely there's something in the aftermarket maybe that's a little crazier, but as far as factory stuff goes, I mean, you know, could probably press the gas like, you know, a millimeter or two, and that would give you probably 25% throttle. It's really wild that, like, I mean, it's very easy to not stall as a result, because literally any throttle input will be plenty to get this thing going. I found myself so much over revving this vehicle this week and not needing to give it as much throttle as it has. And they attempted to change that, I believe, in 2025 to just allow this to be easier to rev match, which is my other big complaint with these, is it's a little tricky to rev match. You can learn it like anything. You can learn and get used to anything, no matter how horrible it is. It's just one of those things you adapt to. But, compared to all other modern manuals, this is probably one of the hardest ones to auto rev match your downshifts on. WRX is another one that's kind of got the same issue, so it sounds like this may be a Subaru thing, especially because we don't have auto rev match, and that's something that Toyota did have for the GR Supra and the GR Corolla. So they own, the things that, Toyota has a little more hands-on approach with do have that. I would still love to see that here. Because you can probably hear I'm not super smooth, even after a week of playing around with this thing again and having familiarity with these already, and driving manual transmission now for how long has it been? Over, probably almost about 20 years now I've driven manuals, so I don't think I'm a stranger to them or how to rev match downshifts. I mean, I'm no Stig, but it's harder than it needs to be, and it's a hard car to recommend for a beginner too, because it makes you feel like an idiot because the learning curve is so hard with these for the manual, in my opinion. Again, you can learn it. Don't let it be a deal breaker. These are great cars still regardless, but I just wish they would improve that. And it sounds like 2027, I already detailed in a separate little rant video the changes for 2027, and primarily the two big things here as far as what affects driving experience is that you do have a more linear and smoother throttle response, they say. So hopefully they've kind of taken the Subaru approach, which I think Subaru's a little more relaxed with their throttle, and tried to make it so it's not so much of a hair trigger with the gas pedal. So we'll see. That might make it harder to rev match downshifts again, though. I don't know, but they're going to try the other approach. It seems like almost every year they're tweaking throttle response, which shows me that customers aren't happy with it, and Toyota's not happy with it if they keep needing the changes and feeling the need to tweak it. So we'll have to see how the 27s drive. But should you wait for a 27? We're already halfway through 26 here, and I would say, again, test drive this, see what you think about the throttle response yourself. But for me, I think I'm curious to see if the 27s finally fix throttle response and get it to a sweet spot, because I think that's probably worth waiting for, especially because I'm not sure exactly when they're coming. Probably not until about the 2027 calendar year. We'll have to see, but I'd be curious to see how that change is improved. They also did say for 27 that the 5.4 downshift is supposedly better. They actually shaved off like 0.02 millimeter or something of the shift linkage gate there. So it's supposed to be a smoother, better transition from 5.4, I believe. Again, I didn't think that was an issue. And the eyesight detected an obstacle that didn't exist. It did that one other time this week too, where it hallucinated. So, and that is something for 27. They actually are improving the detection of these cameras. Hopefully that means less false alerts too. So maybe another reason to wait for 27 there. The other complaint that I have with these is still the same one I've had for a while, that they don't have wireless Apple CarPlay or wireless Android Auto. Now you can fix that with an adapter and get that, or just plug it in your phone. So not worth really, whining about. But most cars these days have that. It just would be nice to see. I'm hoping we get a new infotainment system here with the refresh, which it does sound like, 27 here in America is just going to be, these light little changes, and hopefully 2028 model year, it sounds like there will be some actual potential engine internal improvements for like an actual full refresh of the BRZ probably first, and then GR86 shortly thereafter. So that could also be another thing to wait for. If you're not in a hurry, maybe waiting, I don't know, again, how fast that will come out. So you might actually be waiting a year and a half or more for that. But, that could bring some really nice improvements to this engine to make it smoother, finally fully refine this process of this, shift and the engine, relationship here to just make it a little bit smoother, easier to be smooth with. I'm really, hoping and keep my fingers crossed that brings some extra refinement here, so that these are a little easier to hop in and, learn and get familiar with, a little bit quicker. The final thing to mention that a lot of people probably don't care about, though, is fuel economy. These days, maybe you care a little bit more, because that is a huge difference between this and Miata if you are cross-shopping it, or really anything else that's not Boxer 4 powered. these things don't get great fuel economy, but I can say that I actually did get better fuel economy this week than I typically do, and I'm overperforming the EPA rating. So these are rated at 20 mpg in the city, believe it or not, for a non-turbo, light little 4-cylinder that's under 2,900 pounds. It's only rated at 20 in the city. It goes up to 26 for the highway, also, you know, very unimpressive, and then 22 combined. But in real world driving here, I'm seeing 23.5, and I did 0 highway driving. This is just me around town, mostly just, you know, doing errand running, but having some fun as well, of course. But I have not been racing around in this thing, you know, redlining it every chance I get or anything like that. So it's good that that is actually overperforming the combined figure. So that leads me to believe these will get better fuel economy than they're rated for. And I even remember that from my first gen BRZ that, you know, wasn't rated, you know, super great either. But I remember getting over 30 on the highway, and I have every confidence you can probably get something close to that here in this as well. Not a huge deal, but just know that in Miatas, you can like get mid-30s while redlining it without even trying. And yes, those are lighter vehicles and a smaller engine and less horsepower too, but similar acceleration, in my opinion, very similar fun. And I think they have the smoother gearbox, the smoother clutch operation. You know, Miata is really, really fun. Obviously a little harder to live with no back seat, even less interior storage space than this has, which is still very, very limited and minimal. But yeah, at under 33 grand to start, I love that Toyota, you know, keeps offering the base version, unlike Subaru that forces you into a $37,000 BRZ Limited as the starting point now, because they claim 90% of people bought that trim anyway. Their data is their data, so I have to take them at their word. But it's just really a shame that they don't offer a cheaper version. So for me, the Toyota wins by default. Even this one though, you know, with the performance package and again, all those accessories, is still only 38 grand. And again, it's under 35 if you don't, you know, go for the aftermarket or the, you know, the dealer installed stuff here. And to me, like, these are just such a phenomenal value, but this is the way I would go. I would go cloth seats. You don't really need heated seats. The Alcantara actually breathes worse in those premium trims of the GR86 versus this cloth. The cloth is the way to go. I would still actually say even skip the performance pack, go for the all seasons if it's just gonna be a fun daily driver, because it's more tail happy, and to me, just the sillier GR86. But if you're, you know, wanting a serious track weapon and all the grip in the world, this is a really, you know, fun setup with these sway bars, with these, you know, the grippier tires, and you know, it is still just such an impressive car. I'm just very thankful that we, you know, have it here for 2026, that they've committed to it again for 2027, and that it sounds like we will probably get a refresh here for 2028 model year. And that assumes then that maybe will mean that these will continue on into the 2030s, which I was unsure if they'd be able to keep these around. And the fact that it sounds like, fingers crossed, not going to count my eggs before they hatch, but it sounds like these will actually stick around, you know, for several more years, is really great news for enthusiasts, because there's just less and less options like this, and you have, you know, other new things coming out that are ridiculous with their price, like the Prelude, and others, you know, they're overly complicated or whatever. And the fact that this is simple, that it's all the fun you need, all the performance you need for such an affordable price point, it's really a breath of fresh air, you know, in these very high car price times we're in these days. But I'll leave you with an acceleration here. It's plenty of power. It's so much fun. I love these things. Yeah, this is a fun week for sure. But anyway, huge thanks to Toyota for providing me here with this vehicle to review for you guys today. Huge thanks once again to Thermal R&D Performance for sponsoring this video. And thank you all so much for watching this one. If you hear more of my coverage of that 2027 and the new color and the new interior, or some other thoughts here on the BRZ, for example, definitely check out those videos here at the end. But thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Take care.